second. Now, so here we are. So, just a reminder, don't do any of these. If you're going to be distracted by LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, email, text messages, you name it, turn it all off. You don't think you can be focused on Facebook and really get value from this webinar at the same time. It just won't happen. Multitasking is a myth. And this is what our agenda is. We're gonna check in where you are now. I'll introduce you to the principle of fun in business and why it matters so much. I'm going to read a business bedtime story. And we'll talk about the lessons from the bedtime story. We'll talk about another case history from a different business. Then we're going to talk about the lessons from that story. And then I'm going to talk to you about, the next steps that you can take with me if that's of interest to you. And I'll make a special offer, including a support of a great charity here in Sydney, my favorite charity. And then finally, we're going to take action because, after all, nothing's ever going to change unless we take action. So I trust that sounds okay. And remember, any questions, please ask. So that's me. For those of you who don't know me yet, I'm a business coach and mentor, and I help small business owners become less daunted and less overwhelmed in their business, in their lives as business owners, and instead to have fun in their businesses again and to build businesses that sustain them for years to come. And that, of course, is specifically the topic we're talking about today. And I'm also the author of a series of business books, the 10 Truths Trilogy, business books for business owners who don't read business books but should. And the third book is the 10 Truths for Making Business Fun. And so that's obviously a big topic for me. This is what I want to get, what I want you to take away from attending this workshop. I want you to all walk away enthusiastic and with at least one action that you're committed to taking in your business around having more fun in your business. And I want you to all leave with a greater appreciation about how important it is to be great at what you do, as well as to be great at running your business. Because, a lot of business owners like us, I'm certainly one of those, we're great tradespeople or professionals, and we know a lot about our profession or our trade or our subject. We're subject matter experts, if you will. But to be a great business owner and to build a fun business that sustains you for years to come, you have to have a solid understanding of all the key aspects of developing your business, not just your profession or trade. And these are the key aspects that I believe we have to all be on top of, and that we all come face to face with from time to time. There's the vision and purpose of your business. There's planning, strategic thinking, goal setting, numbers, taking control of your business, finger on the pulse, financial management and profit, of course, marketing, customers, sales, systemization, innovation, continuous improvement, quality management, whatever you want to call that. And of course, there's the big topic of staff, and finally, leadership. And all of that leads to being on top of all of those, leads to having fun in business. Oh, and there's one more, the rhythm of business, the one on top. That's about the regularity and the predictability of business. And this is the problem. There's just too much to focus on, isn't it? It's overwhelming and it's daunting. So let's focus on that greatest cause that overwhelms you. By the way, on the webinar landing page, I've just put a new in-depth quiz about, or a questionnaire, or survey, whatever you want to call it, about overwhelm in fun and business on the landing page, that tiny.cc final page. There's a link to that quiz, and I think you'll find it useful and to take it and go through it. And at least I expect you'll find it thought-provoking. So, first thing I want you to do, go to your worksheet. And on the second page of the worksheet, you'll see a question with some space underneath it. And the question is this: right now, and if you haven't got a worksheet, just Get a piece of paper or a yellow sticky and write it on that right now. This coming 1 month, what is the biggest challenge that you face in your business? What's the thing that keeps you awake most? So take a moment to write it down on your worksheet or on the yellow sticky, and I'll give you a minute's silence to think and write. Well, we'll call that a minute. And so the next thing I want you to do is to focus for a moment on what you want to get out of being here today. On the worksheet, there's also some space. Otherwise, get another yellow sticky and write it on that. What do you want to get from being here today? What do you want to walk away with? What insight, clarity, what is most useful for you to get here today? Keep in mind, we're not going to change the world here. We're not going to change the world in a webinar. We can only do so much. I am brilliant. I am incredibly brilliant, even, but there are limits even to my brilliance, and so we're not going to change the world. But we can find something. If you want to walk away from here feeling that was good use of your time, what's happened? So think about that for a moment and write that down. It's important to focus on what you want to get from here, because then you can ensure that you get it. You can be in control of getting that. And you can ensure that you get that by either asking a question or by listening out in a particular way or by giving feedback or whatever it is. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is do a poll. I'm going to check in with where we are on this topic. So in a second, I'm going to pull the poll up that you get to vote in for yourself. Just got to make sure I get the right button. Here it is. The poll is opening and should be open on your screen now. So the questions, they're also repeated on your worksheet. Thinking about my business, where it's at and where I'd like to get to, what I feel is A, frustrated because I know exactly where I want to go, but I just don't seem to be able to get there. B, I'm overwhelmed because there's just so many priorities screaming for my attention all the time, and I don't know which one to focus on next. C, daunted because I know what to do, but I don't know how to do it very well. D, all of the above. Or C, I'm inspired and excited. Running and developing my business is just the most fun thing I've ever done in my life, and I have a great lifestyle, and I get to do all the stuff I love doing all the time. So take a minute, look at those, and vote. The first few votes are coming in. And well, there's a couple of A and B's, but nearly everybody's got D and no one's got E. Well, yeah. So I think we've got everybody. Yes. Great. Yes, most D's or a combination of the early ones. Nobody is an E, and of course, that's obviously pretty well what I expected. Most small business owners, most of us small business owners, feel frustrated, overwhelmed, and daunted, or all of those feelings at once, because we're great technicians, we're great carpenters, we're great architects, we're great web developers, we're great mortgage brokers or real estate agents, but none of us ever went to business owner school, did we? And so we sometimes feel a bit like that. Anybody recognize that? That's Brian's mother in The Life of Brian in the Monty Python movie. Fantastic. Anyway, so if we feel daunted and we feel frustrated, we're overwhelmed because you do know about all the things that need doing really, but you haven't got the time, you don't know which things to prioritize, and most of those things that you know that need to be done. They're not actually part of your core skills. And in the meantime, there's always another crisis to manage somewhere. You run around from employee crisis to client crisis to supplier crisis to compliance crisis to cash crisis, and all the way back to the beginning again. And it's sometimes a bit like playing a game of whack the mole. You never know what's going to pop up next and where. And what that leads to is, one, you should manage the business instead of being in the business. After all, that's what everybody always tells you. And hence you feel inadequate, not good enough as a business owner, feel like you're not quite cutting it as a business owner. And what's worse in a way is this, because everyone who tells you so, that you should be working on the business rather than in the business, everyone is actually right. You simply cannot build a fun, healthy, sustainable business by being in the business, by managing crises and swinging the hammer, as it were, all the time. There's the work of the business owner, like swinging the hammer, if you're a carpenter, and extinguishing brush fires that have to be done. And then there's the work of the business owner, work of the business, and then there's the work of the business owner, managing and developing and steering the business. And that last one really requires your attention only. Can't be delegated to anybody else. It's got to be done by you, and it's got to be done by you as much as possible. And so the business stagnates and you feel frustrated and you're overwhelmed. So let's roll up our sleeves and let's do something about that. The way out of stagnation, the way out of frustration and feeling daunted, the difference between success and failure is, I believe, a 3-letter word. 3 letters only. F-U-N, fun. Surprising, really. I mean, would be. I mean, not many people consider, serious business owners, serious business coaches consider that fun is the most important thing. But those 3 letters, those three letters, that simple word, it really has the power to change your life forever. And not even John Cleese is convinced yet. But let me try and convince you. Because your inner voices of skepticism, are probably screaming at me from here, as if this is a business we're talking about here, serious stuff, contracts, profits, cash, pipelines, occupational health and safety. I think it's called work health and safety now in Australia. Don't talk to us serious business owners about fun. We haven't got time for fun. We don't have time to go to the gym and look after our health. We haven't had time to take our son to soccer training for the past 4 years. We certainly haven't got time to start having fun. But this is the deal. See, I'm not talking about frivolous fun here. I'm talking about a special kind of fun. Not the fun we have when we're getting drunk on a Friday afternoon, casual Fridays, that hated concept, or the fun we have going on a picnic on a Sunday or holidaying in Bora Bora. That's not the kind of fun I'm talking about. It's nice fun, and nothing wrong with that kind of fun, but the kind of fun that I'm interested in, that I want to talk to you about, is the fun of business. And let me explain it with one of my bedtime stories. This is the illustration of what I mean with fun in business. So sit back, imagine I'm tucking you into bed and snuggle in. A bit early for me to be going to bed, but for you guys in Australia, not far off. Anyway, so imagine I'm tucking you in and snuggle in. This is the story of Brian and how Brian transformed his business by focusing on that single 3-letter word. Once upon a time, a long, long time ago, in a country not unlike Australia, Brian owned a car accessories business. So Brian was a client of mine in Sydney. Brian's business had plateaued over the past couple of years, and Brian was frustrated that he couldn't seem to push the business ahead any further anymore. And Brian spent his days running from crisis to crisis, and Brian's head was exploding with all the different competing priorities that were screaming for his attention every day. All the challenges of managing inventories and cash flow, staff, marketing systems, etc. Brian simply didn't know where to look and where to direct his focus. So around this time, I met Brian and we started working together. And once it became clear what the most pressing issues for Brian were, we created a fun in business scale. And there was a scale from 0 to 10. And you'll be making one of those scales a bit later on yourself, on your worksheet. Scale from 0 to 10. 10 on this scale meant that Brian had had as much fun in his business as he could possibly have, and 0 meant the opposite. So every week in our sessions, Brian had asked himself 3 questions. Now, that's the wrong slide. That's the slide we're meant to have. So every week, Brian would ask himself 3 questions. That's a fun-o-meter, of course, standard principle, scale from 0 to 10. How much fun did I have last week on the fun in business scale? How much fun did I have last week on the fun in business scale? And 2, on the same scale, how much fun in business do I want to have next week? And 3, what specific things must I do? What specific actions can I take this coming week to ensure that I achieve that number on my scale? So I remember one week, Brian reported that he was at a 6 and he wanted to get the 6.1 on his fun in business scale. And to do so, he decided to spend 1 hour in the coming week chasing up outstanding accounts to increase his bank balance and cash flow, and hence to have more fun in business. Because one of the things that was keeping the fun in business scales low, as in they weren't having as much fun as he thought he wanted to have in the business, was that they got anxious every time the phone rang because it might have been some supplier chasing money, and they were always short of cash in the bank, and it just meant that they were always just juggling accounts, and answering phone calls was something that really introduced a lot of anxiety in the business. So by spending a whole week just chasing up outstanding accounts, that was going to increase his bank balance and cash flow, and hence they're going to have more fun. That was one action that they took to increase the number on their fun and business scale. Another week, Brian realized the greatest opportunity to increase the fun number on his scale would be to deliver some much needed training in the area of customer service to his staff. After a few months of this approach to managing his business, Brian's business did start to grow again, slowly, steadily, month by month, quarter after quarter, and they lived happily ever after. A couple of years later, Brian opened a second store and a warehouse on the other side of Sydney. And when I last spoke to him, when was that? In August, I think. Brian was looking for a site for his third store. And so Brian, as well as Brian's staff, will live happily ever after. So that was the bedtime story. The end. So let's talk about the takeaways. I'd love to hear from you guys, those of you who just joined us. So if you haven't downloaded the worksheet yet, I suggest you do so. The link to the landing page with the resources and the worksheets is at the top of your chat window. Otherwise, just use a blank sheet of paper to just make notes on. But the worksheets are designed to help you focus and get more out of this webinar. So I'd love to hear what people what popped into your head during the bedtime story. So please feel free to add your comments or questions in the chat window right now. I'm going to collect some of those comments and questions and get back to those a little later, but ask away. So what are the top takeaways so far? Because I hope that the story, Brian, gave you something to think about, right? As I said, fun is the key. It may indeed seem odd to be focusing on fun in business instead of profit or systems or cash flow or staff retention or customer satisfaction. But as you saw in the story of Brian, fun in business is actually an incredibly powerful concept that can help you cut through feeling daunted and feeling daunted and frustrated and overwhelmed, to help you focus on the next most important step forward and to turn your business and your life around. Because ask yourself, what are the most fun times you've had in the past year running your business? What are the times when your whole body just hummed, the time when it felt like time stood still, when you were just totally engaged in what you were doing? What are the greatest memories you have of being in business in the past few years? And I mean, weren't they the times when you got a note from a customer thanking you for a great job you'd done, or a time when you signed a contract or sold an order that was bigger than any orders you'd had before? Or the time when you had enough cash reserves in your bank account just to just pay the tax bill when it was due? Or the time you were working with your staff as if you were all on the same soccer team, winning the game you were playing? Or the time you delivered your product or project and stood back and felt a really proud smile cross your lips? Job well done. I bet you when those things happened, there wasn't a little voice on your shoulder banging on about the stuff you hadn't done that day or that week. The little voice fell silent, didn't it? And that's exactly the kind of fun I'm talking about here. Real fun. Because when your business is fun, real fun, it means everything is working. It means you're making money. It means you're proud of the output of your business. It means your customers love you, your staff are highly engaged, and you have balance, the balance in your life that you want. So in a moment I'm going to talk about a different story from a different kind of business and how the idea of measuring fun in business worked there. But so let's just check in with any burning questions. Okay, Kachen says I'm just starting and I haven't launched yet, but I'm completing my website. But completing my website was a celebration. Yeah, absolutely. It's a wonderful feeling when those things happen, and yeah, that's exactly a great example of fun in business. It's that sensation that we're looking for, and sometimes it's easy when the business just starts because everything is an adventure and excitement. But when you get along for a while, it can sometimes get to be too much. Yeah. Any other questions? Feel free to keep adding them. There's a funny notice here in Adrian Hartono. I noticed that there's a funny little warning on your name. There's one of those warning signals as if there's something wrong. Adrian, can you hear me all right? Can you just put up your thumb or let me know that you can hear all right, or if you have an issue. Otherwise, we'll just keep going. All right. Next story is from quite a different business, very different business. Another comment from Katina. It's an adventure, but limited resources. You have to do everything from scratch. That's a frustration. Yeah. Look, it's the story of small business because we always got to do everything ourselves unless we've got some limitless funds. It is the frustration of small business. It's simply unavoidable in a way, and it's all about managing the priorities, and that's thinking about scaling. That scaling process, a fun in business scaling process, can be very powerful because it can help you focus on those. What is the most important? There's 1,000 things to do, but which is the one I really need to do today? Right, we're going to the next story. Client of mine called John, the very different kind of business to Brian's. Because John has a small chain of cafes in the inner city of Sydney, and John also incorporated the fun in business scale in the way he manages his business. Because when we first started working together, it became obvious that a problem that is specific to Joe's type of business, Joe's industry, is the transient and casual nature of a lot of his staff. Managing a business is a headache, therefore, because he never knows how long his staff is going to stay and how committed they're going to be. But John actually took the fun concept even further in an effort to engage his staff. Because it's difficult for John to get all his staff together on the same day at a staff meeting because people might only work on a Monday and never meet half of his other staff, right? Mostly the casuals. So John was, and the other, not only the casuals, the business operates 7 days a week and from 7 in the morning to end of the day. So there's all overlapping shifts and all that kind of stuff. So it's tricky for John to get all his staff together at this in the same place at the same time. But John introduced, therefore, a digital system that integrates with his timesheets. So each staff member has to sign into his staff management computer system when they arrive for their shift, and at the end of their shift, they have to sign out the same system. That's a very common kind of system, of course. Most small businesses with staff have some way of logging in and tracking whether people are there or not, right? So, but he set up the system in such a way that at the end of the week, the last shift of the week, the staff member, when they log out, also has to answer a couple of questions in the form of a survey every week. And the questions are these. Question 1, on a scale from 0 to 10, where 10 is that you have had the most fun you could imagine having at work this week, and 0 is the opposite, what score would you give this past week? Question 2, what rating on that scale would you like next week to be? Question 3, what can we, your manager and the business as a whole, do to help you achieve that number? And question 4, what can you do yourself next week to help you achieve that number? So these questions were confronting at first for a lot of the staff members, but slowly, and a lot of them didn't want to know about it and didn't take it seriously initially, but slowly but surely people were starting to see the point, especially when they were shown that their manager, and that's John in most cases, took their suggestions and requests seriously. And after a few months of consistent application of this fun in business system, John's business really truly became unrecognizable, and its business did actually start to grow again. And that is why deciding to take a determined focus on having more fun in business may well be the most significant decision you make in your business. So while you're typing in some of your comments or feedback, if you have those, I'll sum up the big insights. Hang on for a second. Sum up the big insights that I've talked about so far. So the big insights. Let me remind you of the principles. So first, when your business is fun, it means everything is working. Everything is working. In the way that you want it to work. One of the important one of the important benefits of focusing on fun rather than say focusing on money is that it leads to being able to build truly individual businesses, as individual as you. Because if you're focusing on money, then you're making on profit. The concept of focusing on profit has a serious problem associated with it. It means that you can't ever do anything else but make profit. Now, if it happens to be that you're the kind of person for whom nothing else in this world is important than making profit, then that's perfectly okay. But a lot of us have other priorities in life as well. But if profit is the ultimate measure of whether or not the business is working, then it means that everything else is going to be a subset, I can't think of the word, subservient to the ultimate measurement of profit. So you can say, okay, well, I want my staff to be happy and engaged and have great lives. You can say that that's important for you, for example. But if profit is the ultimate measure of success, then you will always be saying at the end of that sentence, I want my staff to be happy and engaged and have great lives, as long as it doesn't cost me any more money. Or you can say, I want to have balance in my own life, as long as it doesn't cost me any more money. I want to have a positive impact on the environment as long as it doesn't cost me any more money. The point is that your business is as unique as you are. And so what is fun with a capital F for you is different to what it may be for me. For me, it may be incredibly important to make lots of profit. Otherwise, I won't be having fun. But for you, it may be something else, maybe slightly more important. And so there's a balance to be struck. Every business has got to make profit. Of course, you can't have a business and not make profit. If you don't make profit and you don't generate cash, then it's a hobby. It's not a business. But how much profit you make and how much cash you generate is not necessarily, it's an arbitrary decision. And it's not necessarily related to what is personally important to you. So the power of fun is that it means everything is working. And so focusing on making your business fun can help you focus on the most important stuff to make your business work as you like to. Next. And a couple of lessons from Brian. You can actually measure something as fuzzy as fun by using a scaling approach. And using that scaling approach, or officially it's called a relative scaling approach, using this relative scaling approach is going to help you focus on the small incremental steps rather than the big sweeping initiatives. And small incremental steps are always more impactful than big sweeping initiatives, by definition, pretty well. And that's a completely different topic we can talk about for hours as well. And lessons from John were every business has different unique challenges, as I just mentioned, and circumstances, and hence every business owner has to develop his or her own method to meet those challenges. And the last lesson from John is you can engage your staff with the idea of having fun in business as well. So, your turn. So I've had a few more questions come in, and I'm not going to be able to get to all of the questions, of course. So if I don't get to yours, feel free to email me after. But let's get to a couple of them. Pat's in Wollongong. So, what does it mean, says Pat, when the number on your scale is 7 or 4? They're arbitrary numbers. And that's great that you asked that because it comes up a lot. Of course, it's right. The numbers on the scale in themselves mean very little. They're absolutely not scientific scores. If you're 7 on a scale, a scientist can't do something with that because it doesn't mean anything, because it doesn't know how it's measured, and it's so individual. Now, what's 7 on your scale is what's 3 on somebody else's scale. There's no meaning. But what matters is that the process is called relative scaling. It's actually a well-established technique in all kinds of scientific disciplines, actually. Because imagine that I ask you, for example, how happy are you? Ask you now here, how happy are you on a scale from 0 to 10? Now, where 10 is that you're delirious, you can't possibly be any happier. And 0 is the opposite. You're at risk of jumping off the harbour bridge or whatever your preferred method of suicide is. You're at the opposite of being deliriously happy. Now, depending on what kind of day or week you've had, you will be able to answer that question with a number. You might say 7. So now if I ask you exactly the same question again tomorrow, you might ask her with 7 and say 7. You might answer and say 7.5. And as you said, but in itself that doesn't mean anything. But what it does mean is that if you answer the question at 7 and you say 7.5 tomorrow when you said 7 today, it means that we can infer that you're a little bit happier tomorrow than you were today. And that's the same principle that we use when we're doing the fun in business scaling. Hope that makes sense. It's quite, some people find it difficult to get their head around that, but it takes a little while to think that way, and it's incredibly powerful. I use the whole process of relative scaling a lot, actually, with my clients, and for myself sometimes, and I'm not sure what I need to do. Or... Yeah. So here's another question from Kate, Melbourne. What happens with staff who don't care? Yeah. Okay. So. Yeah. Staff are those pesky things that insist on having a mind of their own. They don't always behave the way we'd like them to, or even expect them to. That's obviously a problem. But don't misunderstand me. Transforming the business through the focus on fun in business is not some kind of magic wand, and you wave the wand once and everything's fixed. It doesn't work that way. Sadly, the principle is simple, but it doesn't necessarily make it easy to carry it out, right? So it really took absolute commitment on John's part to make it work and get the doubters on board, but it worked. And it took weeks, months maybe. Staff are people. That's the first thing we've got to realize. Staff are actually people. They really are. They are actually people just like you and I. And they have the same fears and the same motivations that you have. But, as famous business guru Jim Collins said, you've got to get the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus. Some people just don't want to know. But it starts with you. It took John a while with all his backpackers and his casuals. It's a tough crowd. I mean, it really is. John had to be absolutely committed and disciplined. He had to be seen to be walking the talk over and over. But slowly but surely, he turned the culture around. All right. That work, Kate? Yes. Pleasure, Kate. Pleasure. All right, let's move on. So I mentioned before that I want to give you some information on how to take next steps if you want to, if they're interested to you, and that I have a special offer for you. So everything I do is about helping small business owners out of that state of overwhelmed and feeling daunted, and into having fun in business. So let's have a look at what causes your feelings of being overwhelmed. What is your most pressing issue? And Katjen, of course, you mentioned before that your limited resources and having to do everything yourself is a big one for you. So remember, I asked you to focus and write down your biggest challenge in your business right now. So let's have another look at that. That biggest challenge, the biggest thing that keeps you awake. I'm assuming your biggest challenge is not quite as bad as this woman's biggest challenge, but nevertheless, we'll have to take it seriously. So I want to make it as easy as possible for you to take the next step. I want to make it so easy it's a no-brainer. This is how easy I can make it to take the next step. Katjen, you also mentioned market research. You find it difficult to find the information. Yeah, market research is a tricky one. Small business, it's very hard to get the right information. I totally get what you're getting. So this is how easy I can make it to take the next steps with me. How I can help you to get around your most pressing issue and to start having more fun in business. What I can give you is a business health check with a 6 or 7 page report. It's really insightful, comprehensive report. You get a hard copy of one of my books, and then you get to sit down with me via Skype, one-on-one for up to an hour and a half to gain clarity and focus about where you are now, where you want to get to in your business, and what the best next steps are for you to take that you can take in your business yourself. And you're going to walk away with one or more simple action steps that will start to move you forward past that big pressing issue. And the offer is all of that. So the business health check report, the book, and an hour and a half focused coaching session with me. All you have to do is is to make a $100 donation to my favorite charity, the Wayside Chapel. It's a church refuge centre in Sydney for homeless people that do amazing work, amazing organisation. So $100 donation to the Wayside Chapel. It's truly the most fun and most effective charity donation you ever made in your life. The offer is also on your worksheet and the web address for the Wayside Chapel. So that's the offer. Back to the grind. Remember once more, these are the big takeaways. Business is fun. Everything is working. Fun helps you focus on the next most important thing. You can measure fun in business. You can actually measure it. It seems like a fuzzy idea, but you can measure it by using a relative scaling approach, and the relative scaling approach helps you focus on the small incremental steps rather than the big sweeping initiatives. And every business has its own unique challenges and its own unique definition of what fun in business really is. And it's also possible to engage your staff with the idea of having fun in business. So let's get into action. First, what you got to do, you really need to set some time aside over the next few days and over the week at most. If you don't set some time aside for this, nothing's going to happen. If you don't set some time aside with to do something with what we've talked about today, what you've learned, and the information I'm giving you in the next few days, then coming on this webinar has been a waste of time. That's the next steps, and that's the waste of time. Sorry, the slides were behind. The only thing that ultimately makes any difference in life, in business, anywhere, is what actions you take. So here's a few simple actions that I'm going to suggest you take, that I encourage you to take in the next week or two at most. I think they're also on your worksheet. But so, first, go to the resources page. Well, the first one is make time and put it in your diary. Go to the resources page for this webinar and download the articles and tools and that questionnaire, the fun and business questionnaire that's on there. Click on the link, the overwhelmed. I'm sorry, it's called the Are You Overwhelmed quiz. That's on the resources page. See, that's not on this list on the page, but anyway, that's yes. And on a blank piece of paper, list the 5. That's action number 3. List the 5 most fun memories of running your business since you started it. Ask yourself the question, how much fun did I have in business last week on a scale from 0 to 10, with 10 being the most fun I've ever had and 0 being the opposite? 5, the next question, so what do I have to do this coming week? This is the important one. What do I have to do this coming week to move myself one small increment up the fun in business scale? What specific action do I have to take? And it's really important to understand what an action is and what an action isn't. An action is something you can book a certain amount of time in a diary out for. You can say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to book out half an hour on Monday morning between 10 and 10:30. That's an action. An intention is, I've got to get better at following up on email. That's an intention. It might sound like an action because I've got to get better at doing that. That's an active kind of statement, but it's not an action. It's an intention. It's a wish. It's actually a should statement. It's actually what we do to get tough on ourselves. Well, I've just got to get better at doing that. That actually doesn't change the world. It just makes you feel crap about yourself. So specific action. On Monday, I'm going to spend half an hour following up on outstanding emails. And I'm putting it in my diary. That's an action. So, okay. And of course, yeah, and I'd love to hear, if you're taking an action, if you're doing what I'm suggesting, I'd love you to email me that action. The Master of Fun scale, your fun in business scale. Hang on. No, anyway, that's just, yeah, forget about that. That's, use that tool, use the fun in business scale for yourself. And so that's essentially it for this webinar. Please do those 4 actions. They're not going to take much time at all, but taking the time to do them means you'll be taking the first step to building a fun business that sustains you for years to come. And don't forget the special offer. The link to the Wayside Chapel is on your worksheet. It's also www.thewaysidechapel.com. thewaysidechapel.com. Easy. I'd love to hear from you and help you take the next step to build your business and to making your business fun. And the special offer is truly the best deal you've had all year. So get a step closer, and the Wayside Chapel is going to love you as well. Any other questions? Just to close, if you take nothing else away from this webinar, ask yourself that question: how can I make this coming week a little bit more fun than last week? What action can I take this coming week? Only needs to be half an hour. It needs to be 10 minutes. And any small step matters. The old saying is, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. Yeah, it's very true. Cannot be denied. But you also have to take step 2, step 3, step 4, and step 5. And they're all small steps, but it's all about taking them consistently. The secret of changing your life and your business and your world is taking consistent small steps every day, every week. Any last questions? Pipe up now, or I can take anybody off mute and we can have a conversation. Let me know if you'd like that, and otherwise we're going to close. And I'm going to stop the recording now, so your questions won't be on air. And